Bundles are a new item coming to Minecraft in 1.17. You've probably already heard about them, might have even given them a test drive in the snapshots, but I've been meaning to talk about these since they're announced. Now, I've been holding off because snapshots tend to make big sweeping changes quickly, where one week something works like this, then the next it's totally different and stuff you say becomes outdated. But these things have been out for a while now, and my hope was that with a few iterations we'd start seeing adjustments that address some issues. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going that way, and I wanted to talk about this because I think a big mistake's being made here. Bundles in their current implementation are so fundamentally flawed. With most features, like them or hate them, I'm not too fussed either way because it doesn't really matter, but this is different because bundles promise to solve an issue that is a very real issue, an inventory issue. And it's frustrating because they've gotten this feature so wrong that I'm going to make an entire video going over what the inventory issue is and why these don't actually do much of anything to really fix it. So subscribe if you like what you see. 300 and something people. How many subscribers do I have? 321,835 people decided it's a pretty good idea, and you can too. I will be your host, I'm SimplySark, and today I'm going to give bundles a bit of a roasting. Don't be shy, no need to hold back. If you have any particularly rare insults you've been saving for bundles, there's never been a better time. Let's start here. The thing that really irks me about the bundle is that it is a complete poser, a false idol. It comes along and promises our salvation from our inventory woes, yet fails to deliver on pretty much any of them. So what is the inventory problem? The way it's being interpreted is that after many years, Minecraft's item count has swelled to the point our inventories are getting clogged with too much stuff. The solution to this is the bundle. It's basically like a little bag, but the twist is a bundle can hold an entire stack's worth of items, but they can be a mix of any items. So if you have a bunch of small quantities of stuff, you can essentially compress them all into what was originally a single slot. Look, when I first saw this, my impression was, hey, that actually sounds pretty cute. But when you actually start using this feature, it becomes obvious in practice this doesn't work nearly as well as it thinks it does. The thing with bundles is they're trying to be too clever with this. Now sometimes you need to think outside the box, and the best solution turns out to be something nobody was really expecting. But then again, sometimes the best solution isn't that 1000 IQ big brain moment, it's the obvious thing that everyone was thinking of. And this whole inventory issue totally falls into the second category. The problem here has been interpreted as there's too much stuff, here's an option to compress and optimize. And listen, I'm not saying that you don't amass junk from exploring and splunking, that totally happens. But they've hyper-focused here and offered merely a partial solution and aren't really addressing the heart of the issue. The inventory problem is actually all about accessibility and, yes, capacity. I will counter that when people complain about the inventory, they aren't talking about the random junk they're picking up, they're complaining about what was already in there to begin with. The fact is, the Minecraft meta has influenced how we organise our inventories. In the old days, all you needed was some small combination of something like a sword, pick, some blocks and maybe a few torches. That was the basic bare minimum setup that would see you through your Minecraft days. Fast forward to today, and it's such a different story because you, the player, are now expected to actively carry so many more items than you used to. Think about all the things you need to have on your person, stuff that you can't tuck away somewhere because you'll likely need it at any moment's notice. Take a look at this inventory. This right here is a great example of what the modern Minecraft inventory looks like. Nearly everything here is pretty much non-negotiable. You've got to have it directly in your inventory, and if you don't, you're either putting yourself in danger or at some kind of disadvantage. And it's really not much of an exaggeration. From Mojang's perspective, the problem is the inventory is getting filled with low quantities of random stuff, but the actual underlying issue is that the base inventory's capacity is getting completely annihilated. Here, a whopping 75% of the slots are getting consumed. That means that only a measly 25% remain to process incoming and outgoing items. And here lies the really aggravating thing about bundles. They've got this almost hostile design to them. I just want to dispel something quickly because I keep seeing this argument brought up and it just makes no sense. When Notch designed the game, when he made the inventory, he did not pick 36 as some holy number, 36 being the main slots in the inventory. In all likelihood, it's basically just an arbitrary number that was chosen because, hey, it's a multiple of the 9 hotbar slots and sounds about right. There is no intrinsic balance to having 36 slots, it's just some number. And I bring it up because there's this unfounded sentiment that altering this number somehow throws off the balance of the game. It doesn't. It's just a number, arguably an outdated number given how many new items there are in Minecraft now. But for some reason, the bundle places an enormous value on this arbitrary precedent, and the mere suggestion of increasing the inventory's potential capacity is met with cries of foul play. That's OP. But if we take a step back just for a moment and think about it, how? How is that actually overpowered? What imbalance does the player gaining access to a larger inventory really cause? Nothing. The answer's nothing. Here's the thing. There's no problem with gating the inventory. It creates progression within the game and gives value to something like a shulker box. It becomes something to pursue. But balance doesn't exist in this binary world of default inventory or endgame shulker boxes. There exists a gradient. A shulker box increases one slot's capacity by a huge factor. One slot becomes 27 slots. What I'm getting at here is that there is clearly a large margin for some middle ground. Bundles are more than capable of holding more than a stack's worth of items without stepping on shulker box's toes and invalidating them. The fact is, bundles are being too stingy. There's this whole they can only hold a stack twist, which, like I said, sounds cute and is clever in theory, but in practical terms, it just doesn't deliver on the job that needs doing. Bundles should be able to hold a few stacks. 3 is quite a reasonable number, seeing as chests, shulker boxes and players work with multiples of it. It's modest enough that it leaves shulker boxes as a worthwhile pursuit for later in the game, but at the same time expands on the inventory's capacity, which is part of the whole issue. Because the thing is, the bundle is trying to market itself as the early game explorer's best friend, but it overlooks a fatal flaw. Unstackables gain absolutely no benefit from this mechanic, and that's the ironic thing here, because unstackables are one of the instances where being able to compress them would be really helpful. It's like they were designing this and intentionally built this aggressive bottleneck after realizing, oh dang, we've accidentally made something useful. Can't be having that out, can we? I talk about unstackables because they make up a large part of the loot pool. Here's another example I posted on Twitter of what could be a predictable haul from doing a bit of early game exploring. So much of this loot is unable to benefit from bundling simply because unstackables aren't divisible like other items. And really, if you find an enchanted book versus a few pumpkin seeds, which are you going to pick? It's going to be the book. This is the advertised use for bundles, and it still doesn't get it right. Some of you may say, well, unstackables are unstackable intentionally to prevent you from having too many. I don't disagree that if you, the unprepared player, have overindulged on your looting and are being met with a tough choice that you should have to pick what to keep. But if you've had the foresight to prepare, if you've smartly brought along some bundles, you should gain an edge and be rewarded for having thought ahead. Like I said though, the core of the inventory problem isn't just about capacity. If that was all there is to it, there'd be no reason to complain because shulker boxes are fantastic. They increase your capacity exponentially, and even end chests, which are easier to get, nearly double how much you can store on the go. The true reason people are still complaining about the inventory is because neither of those systems are accessible enough. They both need placing down. Neither are active storage. This really ought to be where bundles outshine those other storage methods. They think they do, except of course they don't. Bundles are active storage, but the problem is they're not committing to it properly. Even if bundles never get a capacity increase, what they 100% need to be is buttery smooth to work with. They need to be accessible. Bundles should act as an extension of the inventory. Getting items in and out should be lightning fast and no hassle whatsoever. The current iteration is not good enough. It's clunky having to toss items out into the world and only being able to grab what was added most recently. Really, we should be able to just keep the bundles open and drag items in and out like the regular inventory. Some may argue that that's what Minecraft is all about, being unrefined and rough around the edges. That's all well and good, but this is so not the time or place for it. Interfaces, direct interfaces like menus, should never be unintuitive. They should always be as easy to use as humanly possible. If you look at this, haven't I just basically converted bundles into backpacks? And isn't that pretty generic and unoriginal? Yes. 100%. This is a completely uninspired run-of-the-mill idea that is getting suggested by everyone. Because like I said, sometimes the most obvious solution is the correct one. It doesn't need to be some 4D chess move that goes on to win the Nobel Prize. Pick the thing that is staring you blindly in the face. Here's what I'll say. I guarantee if we look a year, 2, or however many in the future, this inventory complaint will persist. I think they've completely missed the mark with this one and are addressing only one aspect of what is a larger issue. And let me just stop you if you're thinking, well, the greater problem can be dealt with later. Bundles are only supposed to address this particular problem. Bundles are the opportunity to solve the problem. They've already laid the groundwork. The issue with bundles is only skin deep and mostly caused by intentional limitations in their design. Improved accessibility and scrapping that one stack limit would bring this mechanic up to par with what it truly ought to be. Some of you might like bundles, don't get it myself, but okay. Some of you might have listened to their pitch of what they're trying to be and thought, yeah, I get it. So I'll ask this question. If bundles had increased capacity and accessibility like I've described, does that invalidate the original idea of compression and optimization? Personally, I don't think it does. I think it maintains that idea whilst also addressing the wider issue alongside it. Bundles are an interesting concept. They've thrown out this mechanic and clearly it's not just some copy-pasted feature from elsewhere, this is an entirely new system. That's a big reason why I think it's such a shame, because clearly effort has been put into this. It's just that the way it's being implemented is at odds with what actually needs doing. I could rant on about this for a while, but I think I've made my general point. Let me know what you think. Do you find my points are valid, or do you stand for bundles? And am I about to get cancelled? I'd love to know your thoughts because I think opinion is all over the place with this feature. Either way, that's all I'm going to say on the matter for now. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope we now have this shared bond of hatred over bundles. I've been your host, Simply Sark, and I will catch you in the next one.